Thank you very much, and thank you for the additional guests who have joined us for this film screening. We are very privileged to have Saitabao with us today, but before I invite him to the stage, allow me give you a very dense introduction of his work as he makes his way to the stage. So Saitabao Kaiyare is an award-winning filmmaker and cultural architect from Kilifi, whose work has garnered critical acclaim internationally. His storytelling is defined by his intellectual depth, exploring themes of identity, colonial legacies, and restitution. And as a co-founder of the Baruu collective, he is dedicated to a singular mission: reimagining the African narrative and changing stereotypes. Kindly help me welcome him to the stage. Clap for Saitabao. So, Saitabao, give me a minute before I engage you. After watching this very emotive screening, in my view, we need to take a moment to take a deep breath and just let it sink for a moment. So we can take a deep breath. Thank you. Hello, Saitabao.
Hello, hi.
I'm good. Is your mic okay? Are you all right?
Yes, it's good.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So, what lingers in my mind topmost is the lingering question amongst all the people you interviewed. Are you taking us to the ocean? But before that, probably you can answer that at the tail end of your introduction. What informed this work, this amazing work that you're doing? How it began 5 years ago? What milestones and challenges you've encountered along the way? And up to this point, how we can plug into your work.
Thank you. That's quite a loaded question. Where do I begin? Thank you. First of all, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed the film. As much as it's entertainment, it's also educative, and also it's work that has to, confront issues directly, talk about it, find solutions. So I'll start off, I'm a storyteller, so I'll tell you stories. So if I go too much, please nudge me. This film began in 2018. As you can see, I was very young. Life has done the thing. I'm a bit old, hair has grown. 2018, at the time I was in film school in Germany. So the film actually was my end of sort of my certificate, like end of the course project. And the school had tasked, because it was sort of an exchange, they wanted us to do a film where a Kenyan director and a German director come together and make a film. So initially they told us we make films about portraits of each other, Kenyan filmmaker doing a portrait about a German filmmaker. And honestly, that was boring. We were like, what? Me and Elena, we were like, nah, we're not doing this. So during my stay in Germany, I faced sort of like a reckoning. I had issues, identity issues. I didn't know who I was. Was I African enough? I was born and raised in Kenya, with all the racism and everything. It was kind of a struggle when you're in a foreign place where you don't feel at home. of course, during my time, I used to visit a lot of museums, and then I would be like, I'm seeing all these objects, and they're African. I could see a Kenyan object. I was like, I've never heard of this or seen this object. So I started questioning a lot. It's like, what's the story behind these artifacts? And it was just out of visiting museums. So I shared with Elena, and Elena was like, yeah, actually, we've never explored. We don't know how these things got. And then how they got there. And then we did a lot of research, and we decided to make this film, questioning why are there African artifacts in European Museum. So initially the film, how we had set up the film, the initial idea was for me to steal back one of our objects, but I was told, if you like freedom, that is a terrible idea. So we had to sort of rethink. Initially we wanted to, when we had the discussions with the museum, they said, if you want the object, we would loan it to you to bring it back to Kenya, and then you return it. It was absolutely absurd. We were like, what? What are you talking about? So initially they were like, it's going to be expensive. You're going to there's a high custom fees. All these stories, all these stories were like, okay, whatever, we still need to make a film. And that's why we decided to do a augmented reality where we 3D scanned. We were not able to take the body, but we were able to take the soul of the object and find out what it was. And the museum had only 3 data points, information about this object. The year it entered, 1903, which community it comes from, and who collected it. So we were like, okay, but the most important thing is, what is this object? The name. Who made it? What spiritual and cultural significance does it have to the people? So they were like, the collectors back then were not interested. And that says a lot. It really says a lot, that the fact that our artifacts, some have been uprooted and stolen, looted, and they did not even do their homework. And especially because the Germans are very thorough, I was very surprised that they didn't know what this object is. So we went on this journey. We traveled 700 kilometers in Kenya trying to figure out what this object was. We had 60 hours of material, and we had to make it into 30 minutes. So it was quite the adventure. And since then, I became sort of interested in cultural heritage. Back then, I just used to make films just for the sake, but I leaned more into cultural heritage and telling our stories. And especially because there's a gap in terms of our identity, and some of these artifacts are the key for us to know who we are.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So that leads me to the next question. The repetitive question. The people feel that these objects are no longer theirs, or they could be connected to witchcraft. So what does that mean? Are they ours, or they are now foreign? How can we bridge the gap between our past, the artifacts? How can we ensure that the initiative you're making of trying to restitute these artifacts resonates and lands well with the locals? What initiatives are you making?
Yeah, if you saw in the film, people were scared. During this whole period, it was also a learning process, a lot of research. I'll start off with alienation. I'll start off specifically also when it comes to the whole terminologies. We have anthropologists, right? Anthropology is the study of people, right? Back then, there was another category called ethnographers. Who knows ethnographers? What are ethnographers? Ethnographers are people who study non-Western people. Already that's very problematic. And these are terms that were being used in, museums and all these institutions. Back then, ethnographers used to come a lot to Africa and document, They were capturing people, documenting, showing how these non-Western people do, the typical African documentary. You've seen that meme, yeah? That was a kind of documentary filmmaking. And then, that's why you hear a lot of Africans say, when you point a camera, you're capturing my soul, yeah? Because ethnographers and anthropologists back then used to film Africans without dignity, They were showing, look at these savages, And as you can see, even in the film, especially when we go to the rural areas, there's still that trauma that was passed down. And when it comes to artifacts, we are alienated. We were detached from what was ours. And in 1920, during the colonial government, there was a bill called the 1920s Witchcraft Act. So the 1920 Witchcraft Act was passed. I think it was Evelyn Baring at the time, the governor of Kenya. And this bill stated that if you're caught practicing your cultural or spiritual traditions, you are to be jailed. And it was deemed witchcraft. So a lot of artifacts during that period were banned. They were like, you remember how the tasks, when Moi was putting the task together and banning, same thing happened with all our artifacts. Most of them were distributed to European museums, but that also to our people, it made our people alienated, to forget who we are, to forget our cultural practices, our cultural spirituality, our traditional. And that's why you see people, they don't know about such objects. They say, because they associate our artifacts with witchcraft, which is terrible, Black magic, you hear of black magic, voodoo. It's like, no, history in itself has been skewed, yeah? And when the people say, you want to take me to the ocean, they say it so many times, which is also a metaphor. There are so many layers into it, right? Especially for the Kikuyus, yeah? Not even Kikuyus, everyone. Majini yako, ziwani, yeah? There are layers. In terms of how did the colonizers came? They came through the ocean. So it's layers, we have to dissect it, and it's part of the work, retelling, digging deep into even language and deconstructing what colonialism is.
Thank you for those insights. So this pushes us to think beyond the physical return of artifacts, which is often where the mainstream conversation stops. So, I want to pose a question to all the guests in the room. Beyond the physical objects, what are the more intangible and perhaps more critical things that must be restored, be it sovereignty, over knowledge, spiritual continuity, or simply dignity for true repair to begin? Kindly pass over the mic to whoever would like to go first. Yeah, there's someone here.
My name is Jahira Wawagere, and this is such a validating space. Thank you for your work, for this film, on so many things. First of all, many people don't know about the Witchcraft Act, which is still there, which is still in place. You can still be prosecuted under the Witchcraft Act even today. And I think to answer the question, part of that is also the beauty of what you showed in the film, that the answers that we could not find through logical memory were found within the spaces of the spiritual practices of the Kikuyu, divination, seers, those spiritual practices which were demonized and they're still, out there being practiced in the world as New Age, this and the other things, as if they were not taken from us. That is where we have to go back to. But also part of that is a decoloniality. And decoloniality really means a questioning how you know what you know. That whatever you know right now, as you're seated, you have to ask yourself, how do you know what you know? What do you know? How do you know that going to Moragori or Modwa Bogo or, all of those things, how do you know that that is evil? Who told you that that is evil? Well, at the same time, people are going to pastors and priests and all of these things to, have their communication with God facilitated when we used to communicate with God directly. So those things for me is really important, because then with that you're also connecting with your own soul individually, and then you get to know yourself. Because the moment we all don't know ourselves and we're all shells of ourselves, then we'll fight each other without even knowing why the hell in the first place we're fighting, and creating just different divisions. So again, thank you for your work. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Navina Mtabas. I'm a young feminist. Thank you for your work. I re-echo what past participant just mentioned. I re-echo appreciating the work that you have done. I think for me, I would say reclaiming back is more about dignity and humility. I would say if we are able to return, or the artifacts are returned, first of all, it's dignity. It's about healing. Some of these remains of our ancestors. So if they are returned, we first heal. And from healing, the discussions begin from there. The memory. I'm also a person these days that I am against a lot of misconceptions that are bestowed on Gen Zs or the young people, that we don't want to learn the history, we don't want to live within African culture. But the question comes, what culture, what history? If these things are not returned for us to learn, then the blame should not be on this new generation, as it is termed. So for me, it's more of dignity, humility, keeping the memory, and then now the young generation have somewhere to begin from to better strengthen the learning of our culture and the memories. It's not like we do not want to learn, but there's very few of what we are supposed to learn that is existing within our continent. So thank you so much for already sparkling the discussion on that.
Thank you so much. Any other?
Thank you very much. My name is Kola from Nandi. And from history, you realize that Nandi people resisted colonial rule for over 11 years. And probably some other two communities. We never collaborated with them. We really resisted. And Sabo, the name is slipping from my mind. Yeah.
Saitabao.
Yes, I think I read it somewhere. Yeah, Saitabao Kaiyare walk us the journey to Britain, where the head of Koitalel somewhere is. If we could get you, we will really appreciate. We've looked for it, we've waited for it, and we don't want the soul. We need the body. We need the head. It is not only Koitalel Samoe and several others. Koitalel Samoe was killed with his cabinet, 24 of them. We are crying, Nandi is bleeding, and we are looking for Koitalel head up to this particular moment. So I think this conversation really resonates very well with us. We are talking about the intangible elements of culture. We are talking about the tangible. And all of this, I think we started so well. I was asking someone that this conversation has been on for how long? Because some of us are coming in for the first time. I think we need to do something. Rather than us sitting here and conversing here, we need to take this to the grassroots level, where the government is, where the county governments are, where the leadership at that lower level are, all the way to the apex. We'll talk here and we'll go. I have not seen any government official. We need to be inviting even the culture, CS culture here. Cheptumo should be seated with us so that it really champion and help us to bring back our artifacts. I know the communities are crying, the communities are bleeding. It is the right time for us to do it. I look at a very young man like this and he's just a godsend. Probably you are a Joseph during this particular time. It is really amazing to sit here. And we just want to say, let them go to China and get plastic artifacts and give us back what it smells in their museums. Because I saw them conversing and saying, it smells African. Yeah, it's true, that's how they treat us. I also want to say, digitizing these cultural artifacts will not help us at all. In fact, you just tried because you came and you had to do, and is it called Ndoto? Yeah. You are so creative, by the way. We embrace creativity in arts industry. But I think we really need the real object. I'm very sure the community will not even value it than you coming with it, the real object, and saying, here it is, I brought it back to you. I also want to say, in Nandi, we are really trying to really bring back culture. I'm Masisi in charge of culture, and we started conversation recently on bringing up our cultural heritage in Nandi. We did Culture Mashinani, and we got to realize we were trying to get a buy-in from the community, and all of them are saying, we are going back to our roots. So I think the conversation is very, it's at the right time that this is happening. And I also want to request that as you bring the apex of the high leadership, also consider bringing people from the religious organization. Religion and culture. There's some religion who don't value culture. They say if you do culture, that is backwardness. It is the European who denied us our culture. They came through religion and they distorted our culture. So I think it is very important that when we have such conversation, we bring religious leaders on board. Let them tell us about religion and culture. We started culture in Nandi. I was surprised to be told that some churches chased away the women who were singing their traditional folk songs and folk dances. And they were saying, you want to bring back the FGM. And we told them we are not practicing FGM, but we want to bring back our food, our language, our education, our leadership, our cultural heritage. The kind of food we ate long time ago is not what we are eating currently. The clothing and all the rest. So I think this conversation is very fruitful, very encouraging. We celebrated Koitalel Samoe Day on 19th, that is on Sunday. And I wish we need to collaborate so that we start conversation at that lower level. We are willing to work with you more than before. And kudos, young man. You are young, but you have brilliant ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Actually, the Koitalel, I've been on it. I've been, they were always telling me, first of all, museum people see me and run away. They don't want to engage with me, so they always see me run away. So the head, it is the head. So they first said it was at Pitt Rivers Museum. It was not there, but I'm certain I know it's at the British Museum. It's somewhere in the British Museum. And also all these museums, you see the British Museum, the Burnley Museum, Humboldt, they also have remains of our people. I walked into one of those storages, and it is sad, and we have to demand, we need to bury our people with dignity. Yeah. In regards to why we were digitizing, because I always like museum institutions, they're like, oh, it is shared heritage. The reason why we did this, we were like, if it's shared heritage, you keep the digital, you give us the original, fair and square. So because it's always, as much as we talk about this, I'm always for finding solution. And that we give them the solution. Give us, if it's shared heritage, give us the original, you keep the copy, and it's shared heritage.
Just one question about the 1920 Witchcraft Act. Is it still in place?
Oh yeah, it's still in law.
That is one.
Yeah.
Number two, I've been wondering why we left out our artifacts. So it is because we were told these are black magic? So it's still in place?
Till today,
it is still enforced?
It is.
I think we need to read it and probably tell our policymakers to do away with that particular policy or bill or whatever it is.
It is still in place.
Thank you very much. Sai, you'd like to speak? Give him the mic.
My name is James Okong. I'm a journalist. So thank you, Saitabao, for the kind of work you've done. I see the amount of work you've actually done in that 30-minute documentary, from the part where you gave the artifact to young Kenyans who actually don't know what it is. I've been to museums in Italy, in France, maybe in Boston, and they have a lot of this stuff. I work in the disinformation area, and my concern is also is usually about the misconception that they have about these things. You mentioned 3 things. I can't remember what, like who brought it, where it was taken from, and that's all the information they had. And the kind of work you've just done to actually show us what it is, what the kind of importance that it did to that community. The old men in Muranga telling us that it was actually used by young men in the Kikuyu tribe for circumcision. I think that's a big story. I think I'll give you a thumbs up for doing that. That's kind of great stuff. And I think we need to continue doing this stuff. But my question again to you, because you are doing this kind of work a lot, does the Ministry of Culture and Heritage really appreciate what you're doing? And are they supporting the kind of stuff you are doing? And currently, as we speak, do we have enough spaces like museums within Kenya, apart from the few that we have in Nairobi, to actually store this kind of artifacts? I remember someone in Central mentioning that this kind of stuff should actually be stored in the shrines, the local shrines in the village. I agree, but do we have good spaces where we can actually put these artifacts and preserve them for generations?
Thank you very much. I think before we have less than 2 minutes to wrap up, so I'll give you a moment to speak, but before then, that gentleman has preempted part of the question I was going to ask about what challenges Saitabao has encountered. And while I was having an earlier conversation with him, he mentioned that part of it is even the media is not covering his work. Funding is limited. The governments are not cooperating. For example, he cannot access the National Museum of Kenya. That's embarrassing. We do not have enough stakeholders involved in this work. And I think that informs the next action points, the collaborative initiatives that you've mentioned. And I'm really happy that we have people who are willing to join the bandwagon and support such critical initiatives. And based on the time, I'm surprised we have less than 2 minutes. I felt like we've barely scratched the surface. I wish we had more time. Could you kindly give us 5 minutes? 2 minutes? Thank you for being so generous. So at this point, we can give Saitabao a moment to respond to the challenges he has faced and he continues to face. And then we give the gentleman at the front here to give his opinion, and then we can wrap up with a conclusion of his 2 cents to us today.
Of course, challenges, funding, making films. This film was so expensive. We didn't have money. We had to go into our pockets, talk to friends, family, changa kidogo, Support, we've tried to reach government officials, Minister of Culture. The thing is, the people in charge of such dockets
are not passionate about it.
Also have no idea, what culture is. Tangible culture, intangible culture, they have no idea. So we've tried to engage a lot of stakeholders to bring into some of the governments. We've invited them to some of our screenings that we've had in Nairobi, but tunajua tu how it goes. Yeah. So, but we're still pushing. I'm always walking into those government halls. They see me. They're like, yeah, we'll talk. I'm so used to that, but I keep pushing. Funding is also a challenge, so we do what we can do. If you feel like you can support us in any way, please feel free. We're making more documentaries about cultural heritage, about artifacts. You can support us. Those are some of the challenges. And for audiences, people are very receptive to such work. And hopefully we can continue. We've been doing it for the last 5 years. We have a new documentary that's talking about intangible culture, intangible knowledge. We're documenting, we did a documentary about a 10th century practice in the coastal region that is about to die. Those are some of the things that we thrive because we see ourselves as a preservation and documentation of our culture before we lose it. The people who know it might soon not be with us. So I feel the mandate to sort of tell these stories.
Thank you. You can take 30 seconds.
Good. I want to congratulate Saitabao for the work he has done, having visited some museums in Europe. And he has said that the three things that he mentioned, that whatever record was attached to these artifacts were actually inadequate. They don't describe the purpose for which they took. And should we also bring them back, we might run into a problem of not knowing what use they will serve us. However, it is in public domain today that even museums in the Western countries no longer find much value of preserving them. In fact, they would like to have us return them on condition that we tell them the purpose for which, or the use for which we intend to have them. Yeah, so while it is very important for us to reclaim them, let us also have our communities getting to know the net value of these artifacts once they land in our hands. They were very good. They are part and parcel of culture. They were culture. Even themselves, the British who came to colonize us, employed the policy of divide and rule, knowing that these Africans had certain things that made them powerful. Perhaps.
Thank you.
These things, these artifacts could have been contributory factors. Thank you.
Thank you. I think to underscore what the gentleman has said is that there is a broken telephone amongst generations. We've lost touch with history, and the buck stops with us to retrieve that history and get in touch with it and engage. And it will inform the healing that we are all seeking through the Wakati Wetu Festival. It's going to be a decade-long engagement with Africans and people of African descent. And so this is just the beginning, and I'm really happy that you're all enthusiastic about this agenda to support Saitabao and many others who might have similar initiatives. There is something I really wanted to highlight, the mental health aspect. One, it was informed by, first of all, how some of the people who are interviewed reacted. It seems like people have trauma in their bodies. They see something and it invokes some reaction. And also, Saitabao mentioned that when he walked into that museum, both when I had a sidebar with him, but also on the film, that when he walked into the room, the museum, there was some type of energy, and it made you sad.
Yeah, I can clarify. The title is If Objects Could Speak, right? And actually, I will not lie to you, this object spoke to me. I walked into the room, I got nauseous, I felt like they were screaming, I felt their souls, I felt the people who are associated with these artifacts, their souls trapped, and they were screaming at me. I got so nausea, I left the museum and threw up. I don't know, maybe it's stories ajaba, but this is what I felt. But this is what I actually felt. And some of these artifacts, they are very connected with the spiritual realm. And in order to find our spirituality, part of the key is these artifacts. I felt that energy. And that energy till today lingers. I connected with them. They spoke to me, and that's why I posed the question. What if they spoke? What would they say?
Such a profound question, Saitabao. And it also connects to what the lady, the CEC for Nandi, you said you're the CEC for culture. There was an emotion when you spoke about the head for... Yeah? So there's a lot of... We are in distress, but we are not saying it. We have questions, but we lack answers. And so the next courses of action will involve all of us engaging, finding solutions, as Saitabao said. And at this point, I'm not the right person to provide solutions as an individual. We can give him this parting short moment for him to, I'm sure he's done his due diligence to find solutions as we conclude.
Yeah, thank you. If you remember, the lady was asking me, you're asking me questions and you don't have answers. Why are you asking me this? And we're in this conundrum, you know. We have questions, yeah? We're trying to look for answers. I'm asking you a question, you're asking me a question. So I think it's up to us to take up on the journey, sort of in terms of restitution, reparation, and it has to start how the system is structured. This is deeply rooted systemic. And sometimes also it's about, we are decolonizing a lot in terms of what we're talking about. This festival is talking about decolonization, but the most important aspect is for us to decolonize our minds and see how we see culture, how we see traditions. And if we connect with ourselves spiritually, I think we will be able to understand who we are and know where we're going.
Thank you so much. Please clap for him. Thank you so much, Saitabao. I think I have a small parting shot as well. We are really grateful for you being here. We've engaged with the work that you've done, and we can't wait to watch the next one. But the action bit is what needs to happen. Let's ensure that the insights from this dialogue are not just captured but activated, feeding directly into this festival's manifesto and the broader reparations agenda. Let us live here not just spectators to history, but as architects of its repair for the next 10 years. Let us be the ones who ensure these objects do not just speak, but are finally heard. Thank you so much. Let's clap for each other. Thank you so much for engaging with us. And at this point, we've concluded this session.